So what the heck is HR?
Great question.
I sometimes don't even know. I'm like, what am I doing today?
Yeah. What am I doing today?
Okay. Yeah. What did I do yesterday?
No, a lot, HR is, a lot of people think that we do everything, and everything, outside of HR.
Or they just think we just do policies.
Yes.
Right? Handbooks. That's it.
Yeah. And that's actually small potatoes for us.
Yeah. So the way, I think, to break it down the easiest, HR can encompass, and it depends on the organization, it depends on the company and how they have it structured, but everything from the entire life cycle of the employee, and that's, one of the fancy terms in HR that we call it, and that's everything from the recruitment to the onboarding, to orientation, benefits administration.
All of talent management.
Talent management, which would include performance management, reviews, coaching, learning and development.
Training.
Yep. All the way through to compensation, equitable pay, internal equity, as well as what's the market bearing. All the way through to, compliance is a huge part of HR.
Compliance overarches everything.
That's true.
From recruiting, HR, the whole life cycle, right?
Right. Yeah, but it's a huge part of what we do. Because part of what we in HR are always having to focus on is, one, there's the federal laws, there's the state laws, there could be local laws, there might be industry regulations and requirements as well. And then depending on your business or what's going on in the market, you might have external factors involved as well that's impacting items on a compliance side. So compliance does overarch everything. And then in many cases too, HR takes on the hat of the coach, right? We talked about coaching, even the almost therapists to executives, really being able to level set with what is it that you want the business or organization to do and how can we get there? What are the challenges? So HR can be and is often, the therapist, the coach.
We're the facilitators.
Yeah, we're the facilitators. There are so many situations, and I can think of one in particular where our entire role in that situation with a client was to facilitate a very tough conversation. There are so many people, even at an executive level, a leadership level, that have never fired anyone, right? How the heck can you frankly get to a VP level without ever having a difficult conversation and having to terminate someone? Additionally, these conversations now, let me tell you, it is so much easier to terminate someone remotely. These people that didn't have someone sitting across from them prior to COVID and everything being remote, right?
Very different.
When someone's crying their eyes out because they're about to be separated and you're walking them out and they're seeing all of their peers.
And it's also really tough for the manager. there are managers that they get anxious and they feel bad or, to your point, you were saying, that there are managers out there that all of a sudden they are promoted into that management role, but they haven't gotten the proper training to be that manager as far as handling those tough conversations or writing somebody up on a PIP or having those verbal counseling sessions. And not just, when there's now, shit's hitting the fan and there's a problem, but it's, how can we nip this in the bud? How can we avoid getting there? Does a PIP always seem like it's bad? Obviously, yes. A lot of people think it's bad, but it's also an opportunity to turn things around. So recently, we've had a client, a very large client, to ask us to complete an assessment and look under the hood as far as their HR operations goes. And they had been getting feedback on HR not operating in a sophisticated or strategic function, not only from the day-to-day, ongoing, but also from a strategic value add for an organization that is growing. So what did we do? We came in and we started looking under the hood, and Verity started, that's us, Verity started digging a little deeper and pulling back the layers of the onion. And, the myth here was, it wasn't really just HR being the problem, but it was looking at expectations. We were seeing that there was expectations that weren't necessarily being communicated, or roles and responsibilities. There was minimal workflow or processes documented, optimization of systems. So we found that, looking looking under the hood, peeling back the onion. An assessment's a really great way to start in looking at, how can we structure HR better?
Mm-hmm. And a lot of times that ask, it certainly can sometimes come from the HR leader. Mm-hmm. A lot of times that ask is coming from the executive. So it's the CEO, the CFO that knows they don't know enough about HR to really make a determination. They don't think it might be operating as efficiently as possible. They think there might be, or maybe they have gotten feedback from other C-suite members that have been working with the HR team that they haven't been happy. They haven't felt like they've had a partner. And so it's looking at all of those functional areas, all the areas that we talked about earlier in terms of the life cycle of the employee, looking at recruiting, looking at onboarding, employee engagement, culture initiatives. All of those items formulate into what an HR department can be impactful from or for. At the end of an HR assessment, it really can take on a few different looks, right? Like sometimes depending on what the organization's priorities are, they may need an in-house HR team. Perhaps there's just a team member that is not pulling their weight. Maybe they've been there for 10 years and they don't have the level of expertise needed. In some cases, there might be opportunities where the company is spending far too much on in-house HR and they need a different level of expertise. How many times have we gone and seen that the recruiter isn't being managed properly? And it's not because lack of trying or lack of wanting to do it, but that HR director has no understanding of recruiting. They don't understand recruitment strategy. We asked about employment branding and they said, oh, we brand. We brand. It's like, okay, well then that just answered our question, right? So it really depends on what the ultimate organization's goal is in terms of what those outcomes of the HR assessment are. But we always go in, what are best practices? And again, a best practice in a nonprofit that is focused on, is super mission focused is going to be different than an organization that is technology, hardware selling into the government, right? The strategy is going to be different because the types of employees are different. What they expect are different. Budget's different, right? What the executive wants, what the strategic plan is for the next 3 years is going to be different. And I think that not one size fits all approach is frankly necessary. And a lot of times in HR, or what we've found is HR teams, it's what they know. It's this one size kind of fits all mentality. I only know ADP. I only know XYZ. And that's not always appropriate, right? You need to be able to understand HRIS, that's HR information systems, in all of the different facets to be able to understand where these different things might have value add. I still remember it was probably one of the most impactful things, at least in my personal career, going to a very large company and realizing all these people had HRIS in their title. I'm like, you don't know HRIS. You know PeopleSoft like 2.3, and that is it. If I asked you one specific thing on a general HRIS question, you would have no idea. How many people think they're experts in ADP workforce now? But then when we dig in on this assessment, well, what do you use in terms of automation within the system? Do you use the analytics? Do you use the dashboards? What are your HR metrics like? Deer in headlights. Absolute deer in headlights. And sometimes, again, it's not for lack of trying. They may just not know. And then really that's where it's a decision point for that leader and the business owner sometimes on where do they want to invest their funds, what makes sense for the growth, and then we can work with that, right? And it might be coaching, it might be training for that HR team member, it might be encouraging the generalist that wants to grow and really seems to have the ability to do so, to get that certification or to go to training off-site and learn different ways, right?
Prioritize those outcomes.
Yeah.
Right? We want to implement those best practices, so it's prioritizing those outcomes from an assessment.
I vividly remember a time where a client in their HRIS, it was added complexities because they had Service Contract Act employees, they were a government contractor, they had disparate systems where they had a different system for benefit enrollment that talked to their payroll system and HR system for everything but benefits because that was outside of the system. And they insisted high and low, till they were blue in the face. That nope, those SCA employees are coded correctly. We are taking credit for everything we can. When in fact, again, we know these systems. So you tell me what benefit system you have, I can know where to go to find out these information, the questions I need. I don't need to ask you all these things. I knew it wasn't. We insisted. We said, it is not set up the way you think it is. We were told we were wrong. We were told they were involved in the entire setup. They audited it, et cetera. And this is the hard part about being an HR consultant, right? Like, we don't own it.
Right. We can only advise. We can only advise, and the executives, it is up to them. They can make the final decision, and they don't have to agree with us. But being in HR consulting, that is something that, we need to be okay with being push back. Right.
So in this case, it was not the hill we were going to die on. We had a bigger fish to fry with this client, right? There were a ton of other ongoing items. Well, what happened? That CEO that insisted it was set up correctly no longer was there. Our engagement, the portion of our engagement ended. Well, we got a note a while later from the new CEO saying, hey, discovered this wasn't set up correctly. We've been telling you. We had been telling you and your predecessor, and we're told we were wrong, to the point where a plethora of individuals from the benefit broker team, we were on a meeting with them, again, insisting and trying to show them they did not want to hear it. And that's the hard part about what we do, because we may not agree with our clients. We may believe and in some cases know that it's not accurate. And in this case, we just had to move on, right? We can only do so much.
Right.
If we put it in writing, right? We put it in writing. We're advising you on X. We do not think it is Y, right? We're doing those things. They're ultimately going to make their own determinations and decisions. So, unfortunately, in this case, the client was out money. Had they listened to us, they would have been able to recoup all the funds. It's very hard to be able to go back to an employee to say, hey, you owe us $200 a month for the last year when they're making $17 an hour. Like, how is that going to work, right? So that's why these things being set up properly, optimized, systems being optimized is something we see time and time again, right? How many times do we have clients, and thinking of one in particular, with their HRIS, they had paper onboarding. Like,
yeah. Didn't optimize their whole system.
They didn't optimize their system, but they're paying for it.
They invested into it, but they don't have their process or their workflow built out to go into the system. So,
and a lot of times it's too either just like a capacity issue, meaning they have other things to deal with. Sometimes they might not know how to do
understand
it either.
or know the questions to ask. That's a big one. When we come into clients and we're helping them optimize their system, it's asking the right question, knowing the right question to ask.
Well, and I would say even knowing when to dig further, right? Because how many times is it, oh, yeah. Okay, so then explain to me what it is. And then they stumble over their words, because then they don't know. They realize, okay, we do have that process. Is it optimized? Is it electronic? What are you doing? Oh my gosh, you're manually then entering everything into the system 3 times. Like,
most recently, we were assessing for open enrollment in an HRIS platform, a SaaS solution, and what we found was always important. You want to try to break that system. Always test your systems.
Maureen will always break systems.
I'm the one who can always find actually the weirdest things, and I have
even personally.
Yeah, it's just bizarre how I find these technical glitches in some very large HRIS platforms. So I got them stumped.
Yeah. Well, and then let's talk through that solution or that situation even more, because it was a great example of what HR is, right? It wasn't, yes, we had negotiated and worked with the benefit carrier to figure out what the benefit programs were. We had set up the timeline, set up the communication. We had worked to facilitate all of that. But then we were being the technical individuals, ensuring that the system was set up properly. And I don't think you all got off the phone when you figured out that issue until like
many
8 p.m. on a Friday.
Many hours later.
Yeah. Having to change things manually because the system is so Well, as you said, it was a SaaS solution, so there was so much customization allowed. It created for a very complex fix, right? That needed to happen, where everything had to happen within each specific benefit plan, et cetera. So,
And what a lot of people don't know is that there is so much architecture that HR professionals have to do behind the scenes.
within an HRIS.
Within an HRIS. And that can be challenging, and that takes a lot of time, a lot of planning, a lot of breaking the system, right? And just retesting, re-going through it. You probably are sick of it by the time we get to the very end of the project.
Yeah.
But once you get there, it feels so good. But a lot of employees don't see or realize that there's a lot of stuff that goes behind the scenes. So.
100%. I also think that's perhaps why a lot of HR professionals don't like HRIS.
Yeah.
A lot of people go into HR because they like talking. They like writing. They like the facilitation. It's all butterflies and rainbows, right? We've talked about this, like the math side of some of this stuff, comps, benefits, payroll, some of those items. Sorry, frog in my throat. A lot of HR professionals are like, what's 2 + 2? 5. Like, they just don't know.
Yeah.
They're not good at math. That's not why they went into HR. Obviously, you're an HRIS computer geek. I like math. That's why we work well.
One of the many things.
One of
why
the
we
many
work
reasons,
well, right?
But it's a good example of everyone has their different skills, and that's also what's unique about HR, because there's so many different facets. Like, you wear the numbers hat, you're doing all this analytical stuff, and then again, you're running right into a conversation with an employee about their personal situation, or why they're about to go out and have surgery, or just whatever it is, and working through leave options. So it's a really dynamic field in a lot of ways as well. For any HR professional and or executive that's overseeing HR from a systems perspective, HRIS alone, you need to know the system. And it's not, no system's perfect, right? How often do we say that? No system's perfect, but it's going to work how you architect it to. It's going to work how you set it up to do. And so if you don't know all the functionality that you're paying for, that you are...
Get training.
Oh.
Look it up. So much
Co-pilot.
research. Yeah. No, additionally with that, for, any advice to any HR professional, whether you're starting out or you're midway through your career or you're at the tail end of your career, it's so important to really, you don't have to be an HRIS expert, but
You don't have to be an expert, but you need to know enough and try and learn. Just not being aware and then not using it is not an appropriate answer in 2026.
And I'll say also too, have a project plan.
Yeah.
Whenever you're having to go into an HRIS system, have that project plan.
And work backwards.
Yes. And what that means is making sure you have your communications, you're keeping your senior leadership up to speed with everything that's going on. Good, bad, ugly. You're going to have setbacks. Knowing how to pivot. What does this mean? I have this paper workflow, or this workflow on paper, and now I need to get it into a system. Obviously, that's easier said than done. So you may have to find workarounds or other solutions for that.
You mean there's not HRIS fairies that just make crap happen?
That would be us.
Damn it. Damn it. Yeah. No, but it is true. Knowing all of those ins and outs, and again, working backwards. And how many times the testing? People don't test at the level they need to before they roll something out. They don't have training curriculum. They're not having many different sessions with employees, explaining what the change is.
The trainings, just training employees. And that's the other thing too, is HR professionals, we're behind the scenes. We've built this infrastructure, right? We built this system to help things flow easy for us as well for the employee. But it's so important to also train employees to utilize the system. Don't always just go to HR with that question. You have this system, access it.
And I would say even more so, forcing them to use it.
Yes.
Right? So you roll something out. You have employee self-service, which is where employees can go into a system and do all their own jazz, change taxes, direct deposit, addresses, emergency contacts, whatever. Even add a new baby that they may have just had to benefits, whatever it could be. but they come to you and you just do it for them. That's not changing the behavior, right? That's not changing.
We're just enabling them.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
And so on that note, we can bring it to a close.
Okay.
Okay.
And
Go ahead.
And so once you know what you're paying for, what you're not using, and have that plan, you're able to figure out how, when, and how to implement it, improve it, etc. And you might be working with a timeline. You might know you're going to onboard 400 people next year if you win this big contract. Do it now. Do it ahead of that.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, thanks for joining us. The People Business and Insider's View. Krysta James, I'm Maureen Menjivar. We'll see you soon.